Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. This week we're staying in the OAC with a guy that is very familiar with the OAC. Last week we had Coach Z from Honor Mine on the program. This week we have 03 graduate who is now going into his fourth season, the head coach of Capital University, Brian Foos. Coach Foos is going into his fourth year. Obviously, that if you do the math, that puts him taking over as the head coach for Capital during that messy 2020 COVID year. Before we get any further into that, if you are watching on YouTube, thank you. Hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever else you get your podcast, make sure you do the same. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only difference is the Instagram page, which is dingo_talk. Coach Foos is going to tell us about what the plan is going into the 2023 season for Capital. I know that they're doing some construction work and whatnot, so but it's not my job to tell his story. His job is to explain to us why the OAC, in the OAC coach's opinion, is the best conference in the country. What to expect for the alumni and the coaches, or the alumni and the players from Capital this coming year, and just to get to know him a little bit. But without further ado, this is Coach Foos. What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome back. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. We're staying in Division III with head coach of Capital University, Brian Foos. I got to make sure I get the names right. It's a thing. You've seen my last name. It's a requirement for me to get last names right. Coach, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great to have another member of the OAC. We were just having a great conversation before we started the recording. I think we're going to have a great conversation leading in. But before we get to all that stuff, we got to talk about the Division III player that you were. You're no stranger to the OAC. My question is, why does a guy from Tiffin, Ohio, decide to make the hour-and-a-half trip down 23 to Westville, Ohio, and end up at Otterbein?
You know, I wanted to get a way to go to school. I wanted to go to a bigger city. That was something that was important to me, and I wanted to go somewhere where we could make an impact. And I tell you, Wally Hood was an outstanding coach, outstanding recruiter, outstanding man, and he made it real easy to want to go there. And I'm very thankful every day that I played for him. He actually was the one that helped me get into coaching too, unbeknownst to me to start with. So,
well, let's talk about that. So you play for 4 years at Otterbein, and then coach a year there. You stay home, you finish out your degree, and you coach. Now, I've asked other coaches in the past, what is the biggest challenge for you going from 2002 as a player to 2003 as a coach? Was there a difficult transition, and how did you approach that?
I just kind of separated myself from some things. And plus I'm at a different day and age at that point, because I was living off campus at that point. I actually had owned a home at that point. So I don't know whether I was more mature, but that wasn't my scene to be back around campus later at night. So it made it a little bit easier to do that. And I have to say that, Rocky Alt, who gave me the opportunity, and Dave McLaughlin, who I coached with there, he actually gave me a voice. And so, I truly appreciate being able to have that voice, being able to be in the meetings. It was a lot of learning for me. So it was a tough year, but it was a lot of learning for me, and it was great to be able to make that transition.
So now you have the year of coaching under your belt. Why the decision to leave?
That wasn't my decision. It's kind of funny when Coach Loth came in, and I get it. as a 22, 23-year-old kid, I'll say, I wanted to stay, but Coach Loth was coming in as a new head coach. And it was funny. I, was around him on his interview a little bit, and I said, "Hey, is there any chance that I could stay and be a graduate assistant?" He said, "Nope, got them all filled." so, like I said, it was kind of funny the way that happened. And of course, me being a 22, 23-year-old kid didn't understand why I wouldn't get that opportunity. Now I do, and years later I did. But no, I did want to try and stay.
Now, that's also kind of a learning experience as to what your job entails, right? I mean, any day a coach, especially when you're an assistant, a new coaching staff comes in, it's, you got to re-interview, you got to go through that same process, and you kind of don't know what your situation's going to be. And so at least he was honest about it.
He was very honest. He was very short, very honest. And, like I said, you kind of hold a grudge a little bit and say, "Oh man, that guy." But, after, some years go by and you see him and you talk to him, and Coach Loth is a really good guy. Like, I understand it, but at the time I did not. And of course he probably wouldn't even remember that conversation. But, I think the thing that was really good for me during that transition from Rocky All to Joe Loth was Dick Reynolds actually gave me the opportunity. It was me and my college offensive line coach, Dave Smith, were the only ones that were on staff during that void where there was not a coach. So I had, from the end of the season to whenever Coach Loth got hired, that we were the only ones recruiting. So we handled all the recruiting days. We handled all the visits. We handled calling all the recruits and getting them there. And like I said, as a 22, 23-year-old kid, that, looking back on it, that was pretty cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting that resume of, I capability of doing the job early on in your career, where a lot of people don't get that opportunity hands-on like that in all aspects. Before we go any further, we did have a conversation before the show, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how you feel about it. I kind of already know the Division III level. So we've talked with a lot of coaches, particularly coaches from your conference have labeled your conference the SEC of Division III. I have coaches from the PAC. They disagree, respectfully disagree. Coach Sirianni had some things to say about that one, but I didn't realize the John Carroll and that rivalry that's begun there. But Division III as a whole, there's not scholarships. You're not obligated to stay on the football team. So you're playing for the right reasons. You want to be there. What is it about Division III? And is it still or is it the last pure form of college football in the sense of recruiting and the reasons that the players are coming into these schools?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you find a place that, feels like home. You find a staff that, truly cares about their players. We're not having players go out and get $1 million NIL deals. They're there because, they want to be a part of something that's bigger than them, be a part of something that is, a true brotherhood. And, I look back at, just my time in college football, and man, you talk about learning life lessons and learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and, changes that happen and how do you deal with those? We all know the life lessons that come from athletics are priceless. When you're not getting paid to do that, either through a scholarship or NIL, I think it makes it pretty special to be able to say, "Hey, this is what we accomplished together. This is what we did." And, that's what we're trying to build here at Capital and put us back on the map.
So you get your bachelor's from Otterbein, you leave, and now you're on your way to Ohio Dominican?
I actually went to Ohio Wesleyan for a year. Wally Hood helped me get that one too, with Coach Mike Holloway and Pat Delaney, who's still up there. Learned a lot from them. Probably, again, young and dumb, didn't provide as much as they probably would have wanted at that point in time. But, I was thankful to be able to, stay in it and be a part of that program. But I was there for one season and then, really got my first real break, I think, at Ohio Dominican. And it's kind of funny the way that happened because that was a new program. And, Wally Hood had gone over to visit with Dale Carlson, who was the guy, the head coach there that was starting the program, and, said, hey, and I hadn't seen Wally in probably a year and a half or so. Hadn't talked to him about a year and a half. And he said, hey, if you're looking for a graduate assistant or, part-time coaches, like there's this guy that I've got and he'd be really good. And lo and behold, I sent my resume in like a week later, just trying to get my foot in the door, and here Wally had already mentioned my name. So, having those two things magically happen back to back got me a phone call. And I'm forever thankful for that.
Well, and again, this seems to be a reoccurring thing for you with the recruiting side of things. For an extended period of time, you were one of two guys recruiting for a school that was in transition. You then go to you take a year, then you end up in a program that's in the developmental stages and rebuilding.
Yeah.
And that's not the only time that happened. We're going to get into that. There's a COVID story that I got to hear. What was the experience like at Ohio Dominican, and why was that the right fit for you? Like, why is that where you got your master's degree from? Obviously, because you were working there.
Yeah. Well, the master's wasn't available initially. And, I think Coach Carlson was just looking for people that wanted to be involved. And, I jumped on it. It was kind of funny. He was able to offer me some housing. And I said, I just signed a lease for an apartment like a month ago. Again, God bless Coach Carlson, because he stuck with me and believed with me. And so he allowed me to work a 40-hour-a-week job and then come over. So I was working at a call center from 5 a.m. to 1:30, and then going over to Ohio Dominican, and then coaching. And then, when the master's classes did become available, then I was going to school. And then I was coming home and, making recruiting calls and doing homework. So I did that for about 4 years.
I imagine there weren't many excuses that your players could use with you. It better be time management, and it better be, listen, if I can do all of this stuff, you can go to class and come to practice. Let's just.
Yeah. I got a lot of sleep on the bus trips, I can tell you that.
I'm going to jump a little bit forward, as I pointed out that there is a COVID story there. There's another. This one was a program that, from what I've read, you were in the process of helping start the program. 120 student athletes are on their way to Madonna University in Michigan, and then that damn COVID, it comes and everything shuts down.
Well, it's funny. We had recruited 60. Were on campus the year before. So spring of 2019, we were going to do spring ball. And I think we were 1 week away from spring ball. We had gone down to Florida and did some recruiting in Florida, had our very first visit from Florida. And that during that guy's visit is when we shut down spring practice. And, of course, my first thought is, all right, we're shut down for 2 weeks. Maybe I can talk our athletic director into doing 2 weeks of practice, because we're going into playing in the fall. And, then obviously we all know that lasted a little bit longer than 2 weeks. But, as we're coming in, it was honestly a little bit of a sigh of relief that we weren't playing that first year, because we hadn't even set foot on the field yet. And so no one had practiced with us before. I think I had one coach on staff that had been with me before that knew kind of how I wanted things done in practice. So in a way, it was a breath of fresh air that, we didn't have to do that, and we were going to be able to get some practices in the fall. But yeah, it was tough to go through all of that buildup and then have that rug pulled out from underneath you. I learned real quick that planning anything during that time was kind of a futile task. I had all of camp planned, and then I think 2 days after I finished it, all the protocols changed. And then I planned it again, and then they changed again. And I said, all right, I'm done. I'm not planning it anymore until we get here.
Well, and that was kind of, I remember the way that process started with getting players back onto the field was a lot of, the small groups. And then you can, after so many weeks of the small groups, you can work into the medium groups. And then from the medium groups, we might let you have the whole offense on the field, but the defense can't be on the field at the same. There was a lot of changes, but that was it similar? I was talking to the Bethany coaches at the time. They were the PAC coaches were all very active in that system and just trying to get their opinions heard. Was that the same in the OAC? Was there a pretty much open line where you guys were all?
You're talking when I came to Capitol? Sorry.
Right. I just realized as I was saying that the COVID time would have been previous to the Capitol.
So I will say this, like I was able to, I knew what the guidelines were. So I tried to develop things that people were going to be like, okay, that sounds like a good plan. So at that time at Madonna, we did not have a locker room. So we had basically an open room that we taped off squares, 2 foot by 2 foot squares, and put helmets and shoulder pads in these squares. And we had one door that the players would come into, and we'd allow 5 or 10 in. They'd walk in, grab their stuff, go out the other door, and we'd holler down to coach at the other door, hey, let 2 more in. And we had to do it half the roster at a time. So we had 2 different practice times with one half the roster, then the other half the roster. I think it was about halfway through the fall, they finally were eased it up a little bit to where we were able to practice together.
Now, did you guys participate in that following year during the 2020 season, or was that when is that when the move happened for you?
Yeah, that's when Capitol came open, and it was the best move for me, for my family. When I came down, and I heard in the fall that Capitol was potentially coming open. When you come down and talk to our administration down here, our president is phenomenal. And it made it a really easy decision. It was a homecoming for me. I lived in Columbus for 10 years, coached in the conference, played in the conference. How do you pass that up? And, it was the right fit for me.
So let's talk about it. So now you're here, you're in Capitol. What was the first goal through the door for you guys?
You talk about COVID stories. We get hired in December of 2020, and I can't meet with the team because everyone's on quarantine. I get my staff hired. We're doing some recruiting days before Christmas. Get to Christmas break. I go down to Kentucky for Christmas and to my wife's family, and we get COVID down there. So I've got 2 other coaches starting right after the first of the year, and I'm stuck in quarantine up in Michigan because we haven't moved yet. And I'm zooming into a couple recruiting visits that are there. On top of that, when the Capitol finally comes back into session, they're on a mandatory 2-week quarantine. So it wasn't till January 25th that I was able to first meet with our guys in person. And I told them, because we're getting ready for a spring season, we got to install new offense, new defense, try and figure out what we have. The roster is not very big. So I told the guys, I said, well, the first week is just going to be speed, agility, and quickness training because we need to see what you guys can do. athletically. And don't be surprised if we change some positions around.
And did you have some position changes after that first week?
Yeah, because there were 9 quarterbacks on a roster of about 54.
I'd say there maybe 3. We could get 3, maybe 4 even, but 9 might be a little excessive.
Yeah, so we made some changes there pretty quickly.
What are you looking for in a student athlete?
We've got a list of 8 attributes that we're looking for. 1, they got to value education. They got to be, you got to be able to trust them. They got to be have integrity. I want a positive attitude. I want them to be competitive. I want them to be selfless. So all those things that are obviously good for a football player, but are great attributes to have in life as well. Though that's what I want. I want those guys that are going to be the class of campus and are going to be competitive and be a great teammate. So that's what we talk to every recruit about. I want those guys that value the education, value the hard work, want to be pushed, and want to truly leave their mark on a program, because that's the opportunities that they have here, is to truly leave their mark on a program. And mid 2000s, late 2000s, Capital was right there. Number 7, number 5, and number 3 finish in the country, and we're a heartbeat away from getting to that championship game, and that's what we want to get back to. And I believe we have the administration in place. We hired a new athletic director in July, Dr. Daryl Bailey, and he is unbelievable. He's been an absolute home run. So we've got the things in place to do that. We were just so far behind when we took over, rebuilding this roster, getting it to where it needed to be, and Capital's reinvested in their athletics, and it's the right time to be coming to Capital.
Now, on that note, what do you say to, and we get this a lot, you and I were talking about it before the show, this glorified intramurals that we hear, or the lesser division of Division III, which is the farthest thing from the truth. Go watch a game. You'll find out very quickly how competitive and athletic these kids are. But what do you say to the people that maybe that's their thought process, or they're not educated on what Division III is?
Yeah, those are the type of people that, like you said, they haven't been there, they haven't seen it. Come to the meeting room with us. Come and spend some time at practice. See how competitive our guys are. See how talented our guys are. Because we're in rebuilding this roster, man, we've got some really talented football players that have been working their tails off. And, as a staff, like, I want to give them every opportunity to get all those accolades that they deserve. And, I'm really proud of the way that they fight and take it seriously and do things the right way. But we're going to have fun with it too. And we're playing a game. It should be fun. It should be fun at every level. And, but it's just, there's no way that it's a glorified mural. I can tell you that.
So you started a little bit to touch on why Capital, specifically why somebody should look at Capital. Obviously, they're reinvesting in the athletic programs. That seems to be across the board in Division III. It seems to be a lot of schools that are starting to reinvest in their athletic programs. Why Capital? If I'm a student right now, I'm 18 years old, I'm thinking about what my next move is. Why is Capital a good fit?
And that's one of the reasons why I chose to go where I went. Was I wanted to go and make an impact on a program. I didn't want to go and sit the bench. I wanted to go and play. I wanted to turn around after 4 years and say, man, well, look at what we built. It's similar to the situations that we had at Ohio Dominican, and then down at Lindsey Wilson down in Kentucky. 2 startup programs that I was a part of and very fortunate to be a part of. in year 4 at Ohio Dominican, we won our conference championship. In year 5 at Lindsey Wilson, we won our conference championship. And you want to talk about rewarding, go be a part of something that, is almost nothing here. And then all of a sudden in your time, it's championship caliber. That is very rewarding, very fulfilling. Obviously, my diplomas, my wedding, my child's birth, like those are obviously, top tier for me, but, winning those championships and building something from scratch, is very rewarding. And it's the same thing as a player. So I want guys that, want to come in and leave their legacy and truly make an impact on a program and come in and compete right away. And we've got a really good core group of guys that are doing that and doing that at a very high level. Obviously we've gotten caught up in some COVID related things that, have hindered us, and we've got a very young football team, but we've got a competitive football team. And I think if you ask coaches in the OAC, like they're seeing us do some good things, and they're seeing us do well in recruiting and do well on the field and make some strides in the right direction. And we're not that far off from doing some really, really great things.
Well, let's talk about 2023 real quick. So are we in spring ball right now? Or are we coming out of spring ball where we're in spring ball right now?
Right now, just got past the halfway point. And again, guys are doing really well with it. It's been fun to get back out there with them. We're down to a 3-day-a-week lifting schedule during spring, just because you're taxing their body a little bit more than what you did at the start of the semester. So, but they've been working their tails off. I'm so happy with the progress that we've made. Anytime that you can get reps doing different things, individually there, you're going to get better. And our guys are doing a great job.
Now, from your time as a Division III athlete now, what's the biggest change in the game?
Probably that's a tough question. I'd say probably the dedication to it. I would say that, it's a little, don't get me wrong, it was 365 when I was playing too. But even more so now, especially with being able to have spring ball. I didn't have that opportunity when I played. And I think the other, biggest change is just the care for the student athletes and in general. I mean, you think about some of the things that they've had to go through, with COVID, and hey, you got to learn by doing everything on a Zoom call, and trying to stay attentive with a whole lot of distractions around you. And so it's a different thing to have to go through all that and then put it all together. Everything was much more hands-on, I guess, because there was no such thing as Zoom back when I was there. I don't think I had a cell phone until my junior year. So, having the social media things and all of that, all the distractions, that's pretty tough to deal with.
All right, Coach. So now we go to that point of the show where these questions have nothing to do with football. They're just ways for us to get to know you, the person. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh, man. I mean, to be honest, I'm really happy here in Columbus, man. I absolutely love living in Columbus. If you ask my wife, she'd say somewhere down south where it's warmer. Me as a big guy, like I'd rather be in a little bit cooler weather where, you can always put clothes on, but you're not going to take all the clothes off. So I'll stay right here where I'm at. I love where I'm at.
What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
Now you're testing me. I always pick up different things from different coaches. One of the things that Mike Holloway did that I was kind of surprised with, he was doing a team post-practice team talk, and he was talking really quiet. I'm like, man, no one's going to be able to hear him. And as I look at the team, I find out they're all creeping a little bit closer, and they're all extremely quiet because they wanted to hear what he had to say. And I kind of took note of that, and that was something pretty unique. And I guess the biggest thing that I've learned is, listen to your players, talk to your players. They truly want to be there, and, treating them like adults, and being there for any help that they need. That's what it's about.
If you weren't, what would you be doing?
Probably being a salesman somewhere. I mean, that's what recruiting is being a salesman. But I don't know, because I started out as an education major and then went to sports management because I didn't like doing the math. So,
I understand.
I'd probably be in business somewhere, though.
Best compliment you've ever gotten?
Probably. So we had a tragedy. I hate to go down this road, but we had a tragedy going into the fall this year, and we had a player drown, Michael Hofstetter, and just the appreciation from his mother, for the things that we did. I'll never forget that. Obviously, never forget Mike, but just that appreciation, for caring for him. And that's what we try to do with all of our players. Sometimes they may not see it right away, but we're always coming from a place of love and development, and always try and be there for our guys. So that's probably the biggest compliment. And having our president reach out during that and thanking me for our leadership during that difficult time was pretty humbling.
And then on the other side of that, on the compliment side, what's the best insult you've ever received?
So I'll tell this one story. It was halftime at BW. It's the first time I've ever heard anyone from the crowd say anything, but it was halftime at BW. I can't remember what game it was. I was the offensive coordinator there, and I saw a guy in the stands that I used to coach with, and we had done some decent things on offense in the first half, and but we left some things out there on the field. So as I'm walking up the stands, I kind of shook my head at him like, man, we got to get going. And all of a sudden I hear from the stands, quit shaking your head, Foos, coach him up. I just kind of chuckled and kept right on going. But that was the first time that I truly heard a fan.
Well, that's always good to know who the voice is too. It makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Second to last question. This one's a movie question. Football movies of all time for you?
I would have to say Rudy for me, and the reason why is my brother was at Notre Dame while they were filming that. So he was in charge of, they had this dorm that was not being in use. So he ended up somehow being the caretaker of that dorm. He was the only person that was staying in this like 4-story dorm. So when we went up to visit him as a family, we never had to get a hotel because we just stayed in one of the dorm rooms. But they used that as one of the staging points for all the extras. And if we weren't going to the game, they had asked me if I wanted to be one of the extras, but we were going to the game, so didn't do that. But that I was probably in 4th grade at that point. So that was pretty cool just to see the background of that, plus I think it's a great story too.
I see. I would have taken you as a replacements guy, or maybe a Remember the Titans guy, little Denzel being the head. There were a couple I wasn't necessary roughness. There were some I thought you might throw in there at me.
Now I love some Denzel in that. That's a great movie too, great story too. But no, I'd have to go with Rudy just from that, personal interaction with it.
The final question I've asked every coach this season so far: was there a question you were expecting to get? If so, how would you have answered it?
What's next? Like what happened this last season at Capitol? I've had that a couple times with recruiting, and it's a great question. I hate to throw excuses out there, but when you're going up against teams that have all these extra year COVID guys, and I know one of the opponents had 36 seniors, and we had 26 between our junior and senior class. That's what happens when you take over a small roster of upperclassmen. You don't have those extra COVID guys. But I do believe that we are on the right track. We've been getting so much more support, here since I've taken over, and man, it's going to be a fun ride.
Well, and I went and looked at the stats. As an offense, you guys were averaging almost 20 points a game. That's not a slouch thing to do. I mean, 20 points in a college football game, 19 and a half points in a college football game, but averaging almost 20 points a game, it's not like you're going up against weak opponents. You have a pretty stacked schedule going down your conference.
Well, and starting at some point, 3 offensive linemen, had some freshman receivers playing, had some freshman running backs playing, had a true freshman tight end playing. So I mean, we had a lot of young guys, and defensively, there was times that we had 9 freshmen out there. My wife kind of has some obscure sports knowledge. She's a diehard Kentucky fan, and she said to me after the season, you guys didn't get shut out. Of course, I'm sitting there like, oh, that's great. Whoop-de-doo, it doesn't matter. And then I did actually go and look, and it had been since I think 2018 that had happened. And look for those little victories, and take that positive outlook on it. And I can tell you, there wasn't one game this year that our guys didn't fight all the way till the end. And that is an outstanding things to see. And when we get to the last game of the year, they could have easily folded it up, and man, they did not. They fought tooth and nail the whole game.
Well, Coach, I think that's a great place to wrap everything up here. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time. I'm glad we got this one done this time. I feel like I've had you on I've left you hanging a couple times in the previous weeks. Thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck this upcoming season, and don't be surprised if you don't see this Italian face just kind of wandering through the crowd at some point, because we're going to be traveling to some games this year. So.
Well, let us know when you're coming, and we'll take care of you. There's a lot of great places to go in Columbus, and I'd love to show you around. But I appreciate you doing this and getting our guys out there and getting our sport out there, because man, there's a lot of great stories that come from our level and our institution itself.
And it's the stories that need to be told. We hear about the upper guys. We need to hear about all levels and not just there. For those of you staying with us, right after this, we're going to be back with the editorial with Serenity Brown, where she points out the things that I didn't do right, and I make fun of her for not having 3 historical figures that she could name off the top of her head she'd like to have lunch with, even though she was a history major. So we'll be right back. Coach, again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a second, Chuckleheads. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the editorial with Serenity Brown. That's Serenity Brown. Right,
Jesus.
We just finished with Coach Foos from Capitol, second to last OAC coach that we'll be interviewing in this series. What'd you think?
Clear my throat first. It was good. The audio seemed better this episode. I think there was only 2 spots where it really cut out, and it was during the personal questions, and it was like the first half of your question, so it was like once the audio came back, you
knew where the question was.
You knew what the question was. It was just that first half of it got real quiet there. But
for those of you that have stayed with us through to this point, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts at, please hit the like and follow button. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. That's the only one that's different is the Instagram page, which is Dingo_talk. Come up with 3 historical figures yet?
forgot about it.
Yeah, I figured. We were just going to try to come back. Really, there's a couple things that I want to talk about with Coach Foos. One, he took over in 2020, so obviously we all know that was
Hell of a year
a
to
rough
take over.
time to take over. He was, or 2021, I apologize. He was in the process
Right
of building a program in Michigan, Madonna U. And that story to me was the craziest part. Like he built an entire program from the ground up, and then to have the pandemic.
Global pandemic.
Yeah, wild. I think we forget a little bit what it was like. I mean, it's kind of we've all gotten to back to the norm. For the most part, I mean, there's not much in the social distancing anymore. There's not much
I think the only thing that hasn't gone back is Walmart being 24
Yeah,
hours.
and people are still mad. Real mad about it. You shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Why does it need
I mean,
to
I'm
be
not
that?
mad, but
Why are you going to Walmart?
shopping at Walmart at 2 a.m. is just
Why are you
better
going to? You're not up at 2 a.m. anymore.
anymore? Yeah.
Yeah. So what? So how's it affecting
I
you?
remember there was one time in college, 2 a.m. I went to Walmart just to get pickles.
That's terrible.
I know.
It's such a waste of gas. And where we went
Gas
to
wasn't as high then.
we went to school in the woods. It was
Yeah.
25 minutes to civilization, which means you
Yeah.
drove the 40 minutes to the Highlands. And I
Highlands
know
isn't
which
40 minutes, it's 30 minutes. I used to go there for work every day. I know how long it is. It's 30 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
Well,
apologize.
you're excused,
Um,
All right, back on track.
yeah. So where are we going this year? We should start talking about that, huh? What are the games that we're thinking about making appearances at? Where are you? What's your cold level? Like,
I don't like to be cold.
do we want to go further north in the early parts of the season
Yes.
and then work our way
Yes.
closer to here?
Absolutely, yes.
Because
Yes, because I refuse to be going when it gets colder out and being in the colder weather. I don't want to do it.
I think that there's one date for sure that we have penciled in. You're going to be cold. Westminster is not a good time at that time. No, it's a good time, not great weather at that time of the year. Yeah,
what are
Eskimo.
they- Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, the big furry.
I don't know.
So
I don't know if Eskimo is right
Yeah, that's what
anymore.
they're called.
Well, it might not be. I think there's well. Anyways, thank you guys. We'll see you next week. I think
That was a rough.
we're going back into the PAC, and then in the upcoming episodes will be a couple new conferences. We're going to be introducing the MAC. We're going to be introducing the Empire 8, the NCAC, the ODAC, the Landmark. We have a lot of great coaches lined up. There's some nationally ranked teams that are coming down the pipeline. So it's going to be a good time. I hope you guys come back next week. And you got anything else? We'll see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.